hungry over here.
Certainty of death. Small.
That is the wrong intro.
I love that intro, though.
He's looking at you, kids.
I wish I knew how to quit eating bugs.
This seems so James Bond.
There's no place like home.
I'm gonna make him an offer down the pit.
And hey, and welcome to another episode of Gone with the Wind. We're here to talk about award shows. We're definitely getting closer to the Oscar nominations. They come out this week. But before we do it, I've got Dan here. Dan, how's it going?
I'm doing great, Malcolm. I cannot wait. We have so much to talk about right now. I mean, we're in such a busy time. It's just like we could be doing these shows every day this week, and we should still find new things to talk about because there's so much going on.
Yeah. But yeah, that we're going to jump straight into this. The Critics' Choice Awards was last year, and not last year, last week. So we're going to talk about the winners, and there's definitely some interesting things that sort of won, some obvious ones that won. But we're going to start. I'm going to start at the bottom of the what I'm looking at here. Best Foreign Language Film went to Triple R. Dan, what are your thoughts about this?
I'm glad that RRR is winning. I thought I was going to win at the Golden Globes. I'll be honest with you. I was shocked that Argentina 1985 won. But because it can't, I mean, it would absolutely be a miracle, Malcolm. And I mean a miracle. I mean, like the percentage of this movie getting nominated for Best Picture would be an absolute shocker. So I'm glad to see that RRR did win here at the Critics' Choice Awards. And maybe, you never know. I mean, with All Quiet on the Western Front coming into its own lease with a lot of the nominations at the BAFTAs and stuff, I think this might be the icing on top of the cake for RRR. I don't think it's gonna get much more after this.
But yeah, it's one of those ones like Triple R is just one of those things like as we know, it just wasn't it's not eligible at the Oscars, and it just the BAFTAs just didn't like we'll get there when we get to there. But yeah, I mean, it was one that when it was nominated here, it's kind of the obvious one that's going to sort of win here. But yeah.
Yeah, you know, I don't want you to seem like I was confused. I'm not confused. I mean, it can get nominated for Best Picture. That's what I was talking about, not Best International Feature. Just to clear that up.
Oh yeah. No. But moving on, we've got Best Comedy, which came out, which was Glass Onion and Knives Out Mystery. One thing that, like, considering what was nominated here, this kind of makes sense. And it's like one that's going to be popular at the Oscars. I mean, it's one of those ones like for Critics' Choice. I actually thought that Bros was really well loved, so I kind of have expected that to maybe win here. But Dan, what are your thoughts about Best Comedy?
Yeah, I think when you're dealing with, obviously, Screen Actors Guild, that's actors. Golden Globes, that's the Hollywood Foreign Press. Critics' Choice Awards, you're dealing with critics. Critics adored Glass Onion. So to me, I loved it. I loved Glass Onion. So I can understand why this won at the Critics' Choice Awards. It makes sense. And it was a very funny movie. And I think if you've seen it, Malcolm, I think there's some laughs in there. Especially, you can't not laugh at Daniel Craig. He's so funny as Benoit Blanc.
Oh, yeah. I love Glass Onions. Like, it's just like one of those, like, I heard a lot of critics talking a lot about Bros. So I thought maybe that was going to get love. But I mean, I've yet to see Bros myself. It's one that I have expected to see getting a lot of love, but maybe it just was forgotten about in the shuffle there. But moving on to best animated feature, and it's just pretty much the same as everywhere else at the moment. Pinocchio. That's pretty much the obvious one at this point. Dan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't put your super bet on Gold Derby, if you do Gold Derby, I don't know if you do or if you don't, Malcolm. I know you do. On Pinocchio, you're throwing 100 points away in your predictions score because it's an obvious win. It is definitely going to get nominated for the Academy Awards and it's going to win. So you're throwing away your points if you don't nominate Pinocchio, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. This thing is a juggernaut. This and Kiwi Kwan are probably the two most locks of the whole thing right now.
Yeah. I mean, and we'll get to that when we get to the Annie Awards anyway, because like it's one of those ones like at this point there's like 4 movies that are definitely getting nominated for animated feature. That first spot is just going to be all over the place.
Yeah, the fifth. Yeah, it's going to be interesting what the fifth one is. I'll be honest.
But moving on to best visual effects, the winner was Avatar: The Way of Water. Once again, it's pretty obvious here, but Dan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, if Avatar: The Way of Water is going to win anything anywhere, it's going to be visual effects because they are absolutely exquisite. This is a gorgeous movie, and it's all visual effects. And this is a no-brainer.
Yeah, but for best hair and makeup, we had Elvis win, which surprised me a little bit. But in saying that, like the critics will do what the critics will do. But like I don't hate if Elvis ends up winning best hair and makeup in the end because it is like the way they do Elvis's hair and all that just is still pretty good. So
yeah, I mean, when you think about it, you think, oh, if you know what Austin Butler looks like and you see what he looks like as Elvis, and then you see the people in the crowd, the other people that are singing and the various people in his life, there's a lot of hair and makeup in that. There's a lot of it. So I could see where this could actually win the Oscar, but it's going to be interesting how it goes as far as the whale goes, because I think the whale has got the Darkest Hours trending thing going, makeup and best actor deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's always one of those ones because I mean, well, yes, like that is definitely a trend of really a lot of times, but I think it's one of those ones like just because it's happened a lot doesn't mean it'll always happen because we'll get there when we get to the actors. But yeah, but for best song we had Natu Natu for Triple R. Once again, it's the one I kind of think is going to win here. And it's just. And
the thing is, Malcolm, critics love Natu Natu. My guild, and I think a couple other guilds, one in Puerto Rico, one in North Carolina that I know of, or the East Coast, Southeast Coast, all voted for Natu Natu as their numbers. So critics love this song. The thing is, getting the entire body of the Academy Awards to vote for Natu Natu. First of all, to get nominated, number one. Second of all, is it going to knock out Rihanna, Taylor Swift, Lady Gaga? Those are 3 juggernauts. You know what I mean? Yes, it won the Golden Globes. It's the foreign group. The critics are a critics group. They love the movie and the song. So it makes sense it won Golden Globes and critics. The big one is if it's going to get nominated, and then could it overcome such great odds at the Academy Awards?
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those. It's definitely one of those ones. But I mean, I think at this point in time, it's like it's kind of got I think it's got that momentum going in. So I think, because I think if it was like one of those cases, like maybe Rihanna or Gaga won at the Globes, then I probably would see the argument that like it could go either way at the Oscars. But it's Natu Natu is probably just that song. But I know like. Triple R is one of those movies which is getting a hell of a lot of love. I've finally seen it. It's fine. I wasn't as enthralled with it as other people were. But moving on to best score, it went to Hulda Gunndottir for Tar. I'm actually going to see this movie tonight, actually.
Good for you.
But yeah, this kind of surprised me a little bit, just with the surprise Globes one for Babylon. But like if it just shows, I think Score this year is going to be one of those ones that is going to go any which way, like depending on the body. But then, what are your thoughts?
No, you're absolutely right. We had this discussion last week because a lot of people like what is the score, and even on our sister show, I call it a sister show because we're talking similar subject matter. For your consideration with Scott Mantz, Perry Nemiroff, and Jeff Snyder. Jeff Snyder brought this up. Where's the score for Tar? Are they confusing the songs by Mailer and all that composition stuff as part of the score? Was there a disc or something sent to critics that people don't know about that shows what the score is for Tar that we're not familiar with when you watch the movie? I'm glad you're watching the movie tonight, because this way me and you can have this discussion. You're like, oh, I don't know where the score is. Or, yeah, it's all these little nuances, all these sound effects, or all these little things. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. Hilda Gudendottir's got 2 of them. So, she may have won for that, but she's still got Women Talking, which is a contender.
Yeah. Also, you do pick up the good point, because at the Oscars, it is called the best original score. So, because the whole Mailer stuff that I've heard a lot about, it might end up not being eligible and just not getting in. But moving on, as best production design, and that went to Babylon. Look, after finally seeing Babylon once again, I finally saw Babylon last week. So, and the production design is just spectacular. Camera choices in the first 5 minutes withstand, but the actual production design and sets and all that is just amazing. But Dan, what are your thoughts about production design?
Yeah, I mean, just the first 2 acts, or I don't know, the first 2 segments. Based on those 2 segments alone, to me, Babylon's got some of the best production design of any film I've seen all year. I mean, I would love to see the Batman get nominated, but I agree. I think the critics got this right, and Babylon does have incredible production design. It's got some other things that aren't going for it right, but one of the things it is the production design.
And it's just one of those ones. And I'll just go off a little bit of a tangent, but the movie itself is great. I don't get where all this hate's coming from for Babylon, but
especially
it was one
Margot
of those ones,
Robbie,
like,
right? I mean, Margot Robbie is amazing, right?
Yeah, it's one of those ones like I didn't realize till near the end, like the parallels that this movie had with Singing in the Rain, because like,
yeah,
I was not thinking about that at all. Then the movie shows like it's basically Singing in the Rain without music. It's like,
yeah, maybe that's the reason. Maybe like, well, this is too close to Singing in the Rain.
Well, I mean, that's withstanding, like it was still a different enough movie to not. But I think a lot of it, people just like complaining about it being too long. But
it was long. I'll tell you that, man. Sitting there, it seemed like that thing took forever to get over.
Yeah, it was long, but it kept my interest all the way through. So, but moving on to costume design, that went to Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. I mean, this is one that, well, yes, I get it. The costumes is great in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, especially when it comes to the Talochians, the underwater people. Yeah, Telecons. But I thought for sure it was going to go to Elvis, because just recreating his costumes is just amazing. But Dan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it just tells you this lady is an absolute juggernaut that does the costumes for Black Panther because she won for Black Panther, and now she keeps getting nominated with Black Panther Wakanda Forever, especially like in the BAFTAs, which, other than Angela Bassett, nobody's talking about Black Panther Wakanda Forever. But this lady keeps getting nominated, and we had this discussion prior to this. It looks like this might be the front runner now, and I thought, I'm right with you, Malcolm. I thought Elvis, recreating his costumes and his outfits and just the clothes in general, all the different people's clothes and everything, is a front runner. And then, but critics they're showing a lot of love for a lot of different films. If you've been following along here, a lot of movies have won an award so far.
Yeah. And it was just one of those ones. Like I just looked down the list of movies that she's also done costumes for. She's done the costumes for a lot of Spike Lee movies.
Oh, okay.
But the most random one that that came out to me that she's done the costumes for, she did a costume for the Disney Channel original movie Teen Beach Movie.
Okay. That is weird. That is really weird.
But moving on to best editing, it went to Everything Everywhere All at Once, and which is kind of the obvious choice. But the one I'm going to talk about Babylon again here because there was some really good edited sequences. Because the one that springs to mind is when they're filming the Margot, the movie of Margot Robbie, and then Diego Calva's rushing through the town to get to that camera store to get a camera. That just editing was like the way that they had to stop his action on when they said cut on the film set. It was just perfect, like synergy, like this.
There's great editing, Babylon. Those sequences are incredible. Every time they have cut to get her a tear, and they do it again. She does it again, and those sequences of Margot Robbie were very well edited. And I would have to throw in, you're probably going to get Top Gun Maverick in the Oscars with editing. I mean, those fight scenes when you can cut down. I know I sound like a broken record, but when you cut down 800 hours of footage to what they did in that movie, and you come up with those dogfights and those scenes and it make it so seamless and so just effortless looking, So, but Everything Everywhere, I'm glad to see it won. It seems like the most obvious to win, but it's got, like you said, it's got a fight on its hand from a couple other films.
Oh yeah, but talking about Top Gun Maverick, that one best cinematography, which is kind of the one that I think is the front runner at this point, but it's also one of those ones like now that I've seen Babylon, I wouldn't hate if that pulls the upset here, but I do think it's going to end up being Top Gun Maverick when all said and done. But Dan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I mean, this is a no-brainer. I mean, you when you're dealing with camera work and you make those scenes look that gorgeous, those vistas, the mountains and everything where those jets are flying, and you make it look that good, that's some of the best cinematography. This guy's going to win cinematography Oscar. He's going to get nominated. He's going to win. That is, I mean, they're starting to see, and you hate to do this, you're starting to see these categories start to shape up, or at least the winners start to shape up in a lot of these categories when the nominations come out on Tuesday. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. But moving on, we got Best Adapted Screenplay, and that went to Sarah Polley for Woman Talking, the movie that's kind of left in the dust at this point. I think Adapted Screenplay is probably the only place we're going to see it is now, unless the Oscars put a big surprise and like she sneaks into director. But yeah, I think this is going to be where Sarah Polley's only going to be nominated. But Dan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is the. People were wondering if this movie had just dropped off the face of the planet, and then it wins Best Screenplay, Adapted Screenplay. Now the thing is, they're starting to say that All Quiet on the Western Front, Living is going to creep into this picture, and maybe one of those two could end up. Even The Whale is starting to creep into some of these this picture. So this is a difficult one to predict, but the fact that the critics went with her is a good sign that potentially she could get nominated for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, like, Living and The Whale were both nominated in the critics side of things. So, but moving on to best original screenplay is the Daniels for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Kind of surprised I didn't go for Martin McDonagh, but Dan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's a bit of an upset, but it just shows you how much the critics loved Everything Everywhere All at Once because it won across the board. It won literally across the board except for Michelle Yeoh, and that's not looking good for Martin McDonagh. He needs some momentum, and maybe he'll get it at the BAFTAs.
Yeah. But moving on, we've got Best Acting Ensemble. We're here into Glass Onion, Knives Out Mystery. Kind of obvious there, but Dan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, with that cast, I mean, how can you not? But why they did not get in the SAG, I will never know. I mean, how that cast does not get in for the SAG ensemble, I'll never. It is the most obvious cast ensemble winner you would think for everybody would pick Glass Onion. I just don't get that at all.
I mean, I think it just goes to show that there's a lot of good movies with good acting ensembles too. I think that's kind of where it is. I think there's just a lot of them.
Yeah.
But for best young actor / actress, that went to Gabrielle LaBelle for The Fabelmans. I'm happy with this. I think he was great. But Dan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, he was going to get the critics version of it. He ain't going to get the BAFTA. The BAFTA is going to go to somebody else. They ain't going to go to Gabriel LaBelle. Did he even get nominated for the BAFTA for Best Young Actor?
We'll find out when we get to the.
Oh, I forget. Because I just forget. That's no. He's obvious. He's going to be the obvious one. You know, I mean, remember the kid from Belfast last year was like he was the obvious, and the kid from Minority the year before. These was like obvious picks, you know.
But moving on, we got Best Supporting Actress. Got Angela Bassett, which is at this point is looking like she's pretty much a lock to win here. I know there's a lot of discourse about should she be winning for this, but I mean, look, it's one of those ones like it's supporting actress. Like if she was put in lead actress and she was getting all these wins, then you have an argument. But like she's great as Queen Ramonda, and it's well deserved in my opinion. But Dan, what are your thoughts?
I mean, one of the things you take away from Black Panther: Wakanda Forever is those first 20 minutes or so, and how powerful of a performance that she gives. And look, she's been acting since the early 90s, so 90s, 2000. This 40-something years of acting. This is a career Oscar potential, Critics' Choice, Golden Globes. Everybody's starting to get on board with this, and I think it's the right decision at this time for Angela Bassett.
But yeah, moving on to supporting actor is once again is kind of the obvious one at this point is Kiki Kwan, and it's just one of those ones like I've seen a bit of his speech on TikTok that is like it was just an amazing speech, like just him sort of talking about Steven Spielberg and all that. Just
well, the his critics' speech was very good too. He's starting to get those speeches to where he's really getting a lot of people behind him when he's getting up there and giving them speeches, Malcolm.
Oh yeah, like as it was. I think as many of us said, quite often the speeches do tend to make a win, which is we'll get to that. Actually, we're getting to that now. Best actress went to Cate Blanchett for Tar, and we talk about speeches making or breaking if you win. Is it a really good idea bashing award shows?
What was she doing? I was watching that, Malcolm, and I was like, what are you doing? Are you trying to make them not give you the award? I mean, most people want these awards, but look, I'm not going to say what she did was right or wrong or whatever. I'm just skeptical about the decision to do what she did. But I was saying before to you, we've talked about this before, maybe she's trying to say, hey, I've won twice, give it to somebody else. Unlike the Frances McDormand year where she was just collecting those trophies and whatever, you know what I mean? Where it could have gone to Carey Mulligan that year. Instead, they kept on rewarding Frances McDormand. And Frances McDormand was saying, gimme, 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 gimme. And Kate Blanchett saying, you know what? I got 2 Oscars. Maybe giving it to somebody else wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah, I mean, that could be it, but I think it's just one of the. I mean, or it could just be that she's like getting to the point where she's just sick of the award shows in general and stuff. I don't know. Well, whatever she was doing, there's a good chance whatever she was doing is going to mean she's not going to win the Oscars now, because
if she doesn't win the Oscar, she whatever she did was it worked because she convinced them not to vote for her.
Yeah, because I'm looking at everyone else who's nominated. Like everyone else nominated is really definitely worthy. Like you had both Michelle's, you got Margot, you got Danielle, you got Viola. So I mean,
and any one of them would be happy to take those trophies.
But moving on to best actor, it was Brendan Fraser for The Whale with an amazing speech once again. Like, it's like especially when he was talking about his character Charlie and just like, and going like, if you like overrating or find yourself in a deep sea, just find the lives. Like, it just definitely like. It definitely showed like why he decided to take on that role.
What's his name sought him out. Aronofsky sought him out, and that speech. I mean, I was emotional listening to the speech, Malcolm. But I've watched the movie like 3 times already, and I'll tell you, I cry every time I watch The Whale because it really. Look, I'm not a 600-pound man, but I've had a lot of anxieties and depressions and really dark times in my life. And I can relate to that. And I think a lot of people can relate to the Charlie character in a lot of different ways. And it's by giving Brendan Fraser these awards, you're showing that you care about people that are kind of downtrodden, people that have had a tough time in life, financial difficulties, or picked on, whether your religion or your race or whatever, bullied or whatever, you know what I mean? And I think this is why this character in this movie, and this actor, Brendan Fraser, who was dealing with real life issues such as this, I wrote an entire article on it from thefourthrow.com about it. So this is the kind of thing that you're going to start seeing Brendan Fraser, he's doing the right thing. He's doing the round tables. He's doing everything, Malcolm. I can't wait to see him win an Oscar and stand on that stage and accept that trophy.
Oh, yeah. Definitely well deserved if he does. But moving on, and I'm going to just do these last 2 together because it's the same movie. Best Picture and Best Director both into Everything Everywhere All at Once. I mean, this is one of those ones like it's part of the reason why I'm surprised Martin McDonagh didn't get screenplay, because I thought for sure that they would have a split between director and screenplay. But I mean, like as you said, the critics really love Everything Everywhere All at Once. So,
yes, we do.
And so it's kind of obvious, but yeah. What are your thoughts about Everything Everywhere taking picture and director?
This is good for them because it's probably going to go. A lot of these awards are going to go to Banshees over at the BAFTAs. Now, the SAGs with acting is going to be interesting. If you start seeing like ensemble going to everything, if I forget if it's even nominated, but we're going to get to the SAG nominations, I believe, right? Or are we not?
We did say last week.
Oh, okay. Did it get nominated for ensemble everything or no?
I will bring that.
I forget. But if it starts winning at the SAGs, it did. It got 5 nominations, Malcolm. 5 nominated. That means it got in all the categories it could have gotten in, except for stunts. That's the only one it didn't get in, which is, I don't understand how it didn't get in stunts, but whatever. So it can. So if Banshees takes a bunch of BAFTAs, this is good for everything here at the critics to show strength at the critics, because you're probably going to get a lot of strength for Banshees over at the BAFTAs. Now the SAGs are going to be the big indicator where they go there. You know what I mean? But yeah, this is this is what you need for the Daniels and everything. You're gonna get nominations at the Oscars and potentially win.
It definitely is. And I think, like, at the moment, Daniels have actually, director is the interesting one, which could go to a different person in each award show, because you had Spielberg win at the Globes, you had the Daniels in here, so it does kind of make me worry that they're going to go to someone else at the BAFTAs and then someone else at the Oscars.
Yeah, it could be a horse race. We could be in a horse race for director at the Oscars then, if like a Martin McDonough or somebody like that wins at the BAFTAs,
But yeah, anyway, moving on. Speaking of the BAFTAs, we're moving on to the BAFTAs. And for the BAFTAs, I'm going to start at the bottom. They do an award called the Rising Star Award, which is voted for by the public. And the nominees is Amy Lou Wood, Daryl McCormick from Leo Grande, I think, Emma Mackey, Naomi Eki from Whitney Houston, I Want to Dance with Somebody, and Sheila Atim. The only two I really have heard of is Naomi Eki and Daryl McCormick. The other ones I think I've heard before, but Dan, what are your thoughts for the Rising Star Award?
Yeah, this seems like a no-brainer that it's going to go from the guy from Leo Grande. He's really great in the movie, and he's not getting a lot of love anywhere else around the world and any other awards. So I think this is like, here you go, buddy. Here's your token prize. We're doing a good job with you and Emma Thompson showing your twig and berries.
Well, the other thing is this is voted for by the public too. So
yeah,
the public could be vote for who they want it.
They could go for the girl from Living. They could go for the girl from Living. You never know.
Yeah, so it's just one of those ones. I'm going to skip past the shorts because they're shorts. Yeah. So for visual effects, we've got All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar: The Way of Water, The Batman, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Top Gun: Maverick. All Quiet on the Western Front is the one that surprised me by ending up in here, and you're going to hear that a lot today for the BAFTAs, because
14 nominations, right?
Yeah, the BAFTAs just really love this movie. Well, yes, it's like European movie, but it's like it makes me wonder if that some of this love is going to spill over into the Oscars in some of these categories as well. But Dan, what are your thoughts about those visual effects?
Yeah, there's a lot of subtle visual effects in that film that I don't think that people realize. You know what I mean? And by the fact that it makes it look real, All Quiet on the Western Front, and I think that's what it is. That, like, making it look real is showing you that the visual effects is doing its job. Same thing with Pinocchio. It's got subtle visual effects that you don't see because they did such a good job. You know what I mean? Yeah.
The one thing that surprised me about visual effects at the BAFTAs is no Marvel movies got in. Like I thought for sure Black Panther would have got in. I thought for sure Doctor Strange would have got in. But
I think, between you and me, Malcolm, and whoever's watching, I think that they dropped the ball this year with visual effects, Marvel. I think they're shady, they're cloudy, they're kind of a little unfinished. And I think that these award shows are showing that, hey, we're not going to reward you for a little bit of shady work, a little bit uncloudy work. And to me, they both filmed. They weren't. Remember, I told you about the cinematography and how the visual effects and the cinematography played a big part in Black Panther. It was hard to see. It was very hard to. And in Doctor Strange, I don't think it was. They weren't crisp. They weren't that crisp. The visual effects weren't.
But moving on to best sound, got Top Gun: Maverick, Tar, Elvis, Avatar: The Way of Water, and All Quiet on the Western Front. Like, as we always say, like, war movies do really well. So this is one of those ones that I wasn't surprised that All Quiet got in for. And the other four are pretty much the obvious ones that probably going to make it in. But Dan, what are your thoughts about sound?
Yeah, I mean, this could be one of those categories that it starts racking up the wins for All Quiet. You know what I mean? And I mean, 14 nominations. There's an obvious love at the BAFTAs for this film, so it's gonna win some, and I think it might win a lot of these techs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's definitely one of those ones. But moving on to makeup and hair, you'd all got on the Western Front, The Batman, Elvis, Matilda the Musical, and The Whale. Um, Pleasantly surprised to be Matilda the Musical in here. I don't think it's getting nominated at the Oscars, but I mean, it's just one of those ones. It's BAFTAs, it's British, so why not? The other four are pretty much like kind of obvious ones to get in there, but damn, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, these are pretty much the group that are going to get in the Academy Awards. I don't know if I mean, there's a lot of like mud and a lot of kind of stuff on people's faces and stuff going on in All Quiet. So maybe that's what they're saying by makeup and hair. But Matilda, I think there's a witch or somebody in there that's all. It's Emma Thompson's all made up in all kinds of prosthetics.
Yeah,
So
Miss
that's
Trunchbull.
probably, yeah, so that's probably why that got in there.
Yeah. But moving on to costume design is all quiet on the Western Front. Amsterdam, Babylon, Elvis, and Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. I mean, Mrs. Harris is one that was kind of obvious because it is about like fashion and that. Whether or not it translates to Oscars is the other thing because it is a very British movie. Which I found out the other day that Angela Lansbury was in a TV movie based on that same books. But like Babylon, Elvis, all cried. I think it makes sense. Amsterdam, you can hate on the movie all you like. The costumes is great.
Yeah, and like makeup, a lot of people are talking about Amsterdam and makeup too. So, but it didn't make makeup for the BAFTAs, which is kind of a surprise. Now the costumes, a lot of different costumes in that movie. They go move around, they go a lot of different places, and they're changing clothes a lot. And so there's a lot of period costumes, and period costumes, especially when they look good, can get you nominations.
Yeah, but I mean, like the noticeable one that's missing, that's probably going to potentially take the Mrs. Harris spot at the Oscars is Black Panther Wakanda Forever. So, that's probably going to take the spot of either Mrs. Harris or Amsterdam ultimately. But yeah.
Did you say the Batman was in there in this category?
Batman isn't there either.
Okay, yeah. I guess that sails the boat on the Batman. I thought the costumes and the stuff in that were really good, but I guess not good enough.
Yeah, I think it's one of those ones like when it comes to superhero movies, like it's going to be really hard. Like I think it's not going to be a case of if you make the suit of the main character the coolest version of that suit. I think it's just one of those ones like all the other costumes like stand out, But moving on to production design, we've got All Quiet on the Western Front, Babylon, The Batman, Elvis, and Pinocchio. I mean, these make sense for here. Hint.
I'll tell you what.
I don't have any fears.
Malcolm, this could be five. This could be your five at the Oscars. I mean, unless you're going to put like everything in there or a Top Gun Maverick in there, you could legitimately make an argument that these could be the five for the Oscars. You know what I mean?
Look, I think for the Oscars, I think The Fabelmans is getting into production design at least. But what it knocks out, I do not know what it would be. But I think you're going to get The Fabelmans in the. But it's one of those ones like I think the Babylon, Elvis, I think has been popping up a lot in the production design areas. I think those two for sure are getting in. It's the other three I'm just not.
And this is just could be just the BAFTAs thing with All Quiet. You know, I mean, it just seems to be a juggernaut in the nominations.
It was. I mean, that's the thing. Like, BAFTAs is the only one that's kind of really giving a lot of love to All Quiet on the Western Front. So it's going to be interesting to see if the Oscars have that same love. But moving on to editing, you've got Surprise, All Quiet on the Western Front, Banshees of Inisherin, Elvis, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Top Gun Maverick. I'm slightly surprised Babylon didn't make it in here, but you've only got 5 spots. What can you do? Dan, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, that's kind of a surprise to me that Babylon didn't make it in here. But these are the texts that we're talking about this whole time now. That's all quiet, all quiet, all quiet. These are kind of the categories where you start racking up the wins, and this, I would say, this is a all quiet type of category. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Moving on to cinematography, all got on the Western Front, The Batman, Elvis, Empire of Light, and Top Gun Maverick, which is, I believe, it's Top Gun Maverick's only nomination that BAFTA's as well. So,
And it's got a fight on its hand this time.
yeah,
The other award shows, I don't think anybody was going to have to worry about Top Gun Maverick winning cinematography. But now with the Batman, with All Quiet on the Western Front, and a British man himself, Roger Deakins from Empire of Light, it's got 3 contenders that want to take that trophy away from Top Gun Maverick. It's going to be this actually might be one of the tougher categories to predict.
yeah. But moving on, you got casting, which is After Sun, All Quiet on the Western Front, Elvis, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Triangle of Sadness. Casting is, I don't know much, but yeah, Dan,
Well, it goes to the casting director who got these casts together. I mean, it seems like, these are some wild films to be choosing for the cast. But I'll tell you what, I wouldn't be surprised if they throw a bone to Triangle of Sadness here, Malcolm.
Yeah. But moving on to original score, got All Quiet on the Western Front, Babylon, Banshees of Inisherin, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Pinocchio. I think this is the only time Banshees have come up for in the original score categories. So, but not that I'm surprised about that, but it's it's good to see that Babylon's still sort of getting in here. But for the BAFTAs, this is kind of what I expected. It was like a lot of interesting ones, and yeah. But Dan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that Justin Hurwitz got in here is a good sign for Babylon. Banshees does have a very kind of nuanced, subtle score, but it's kind of like Irish kind of violins and things like that, which very good. I like for my ears. You know what I mean? When I was watching, I watched that 3 times as well. Once again, All Quiet gets in for score. It's like this thing is a juggernaut. I mean, I don't see it winning here, but you just never know. I don't even know who did the score for All Quiet.
Volker Bertelmann.
Right.
But moving on to animated film, and for some reason the BAFTAs only do 4 nominations. But it's Pinocchio, Marcel Shell of Shoes On, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, and Turning Red. These are the 4 that have been the favourites all the way through this race. So it's basically
my thing is. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. What were you saying?
Yeah, so it's basically going to come down to as what is the 5th movie the Oscars going to add to this lineup for the nominations.
But what I was saying, and I think Pinocchio's probably still going to win, but I think if you're ever going to see an upset in animation, it could be here with Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, because of so many British and European actors voicing characters in the movie, like Ray Winstone, Olivia Colman, Florence Pugh, Antonio Banderas, and people like that. Maybe it has kind of a European type of feel to it, and maybe they'll go for it over Pinocchio. But they are doing the Italian, the whole World War II, Italy, fascism, so that could still sway them back to Pinocchio. I just argued against my argument, Malcolm.
Yeah, I was about to counter that. I was just wondering if you're going to go that way, because I was about to say, like, there's British voices in Pinocchio too, because Geppetto is David Bradley, who's Filch in Harry Potter. So I mean,
Yep.
so I mean, like at this point, because I mean, I think it's one of the.
You're muted, Malcolm. You're muted. All right, you're good now, buddy.
Yeah.
Go
But
ahead. What were you saying again? Finish what you said because you were muted while you were talking.
yeah. It's just one of those because I know that Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, I think came out really late in the UK, so it's going to come down to if the BAFTA's voting committee sort in time in that. Because it's one of those ones because I don't know what the eligibility rules for the BAFTAs are, whether it's the same as the Oscars or if it has to have released in the UK for that year. Because I've made this argument for, I think it was Women Talking, because a lot of people were pointing out that it really didn't get a lot of love at the BAFTAs at all.
And there are a bunch of Brits in the film.
Yeah, so it's so I think, so I think it's just one of those ones that maybe it just wasn't released in the UK last year, because I think it's still to be released. So I think that's so
Remember
you might
Clemency? Remember Clemency? How it
Yeah.
was released at the end of the year for us, but it didn't come out the following year for the Brits. And the Brits then nominated Clemency and Alfred Woodard and stuff like that the following year at their BAFTAs because it split that line. So you could be right. Women Talking could be one of those type of films where it comes out so late or the next year, and then bam, we're going to see a bunch of women talking Noms next year. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But moving on to documentary, you got All That Breathes, All the Beauty and the Bloodshed, Fire of Love, Moonage Daydream, and Navalny. I think this is the 5 you're going to get in the Oscars. Not much to say about that. Dan, what are your thoughts?
Well, David Bowie, that's the thing. I think a lot of people are predicting Moonage Daydream is going to win here because of David Bowie. I just hope something like a Navalny wins because of the message, or because I just love the film Fire of Love. But all the beauty and the bloodshed is another one with a phenomenal message that everybody should see this film. But it seems like because of David Bowie, everybody's looking at Moonage Daydream here. I don't think it was the greatest documentary. I mean, I didn't hate it or nothing. I liked it, but I just,
But moving on, we've got Fallen not in the English language. We've got The Quiet Girl, Decision Leave, Corsage, Argentina 1985, and it'll be funny if All Quiet on the West Front didn't make it in, but it did make it in. Surprisingly, Triple R did not make it in, no, but then I saw a lot of people going, oh, well, it's about the Indians fighting the British, and the British probably didn't want that. But whether or not that's true or not, I don't know.
It'll reward that film because of in India getting a civil war from England and taking their country back.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those ones like for me, I just thought Triple R was just fine. Like, wasn't really special.
I loved it. But I'll tell you one movie here that, I mean, it probably won't win, but I'll tell you, just because I feel like telling you about it, is The Quiet Girl. Very good, understated film, and Corsage, another one that's very good. Vicky Krieps is in that. I loved. Look, if they're going to give All Quiet on the Western Front a bunch of other tech awards at the BAFTA, this seems like the most obvious one they're going to give it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But moving on to outstanding debut by a British writer, director, or producer, got After Sun for Charlotte Wells, Blue Jean, Electric Melody, Good Luck to You, Leo Grand, and Rebellion. I mean, I think this is probably going to go to After Sun, but which surprisingly didn't get a lot of love in the below the line categories. But
I was surprised at that myself, Malcolm, to be honest with you. But this is a no-brainer. Charlotte Wells is going to get this. I'd be shocked if she doesn't.
But moving on to outstanding British film. Got Aftersun, Banshees of Inisherin, Brian and Charles, Empire of Light, Good Luck to You, Leo Grande, Living, Matilda the Musical, See How They Run, The Swimmers, and The Wonder. It's a good bunch of British movies. I'm glad to see How They Run got in here because it is a really good movie. It's just kind of got lost in the shuffle when it was released in everywhere else, but it's on Disney Plus now for me at least. Probably somewhere out, maybe HBO Max or something for you guys. But it's really good. If you haven't seen it and like murder mysteries, go see it. It's fun.
Yeah, it really is. I'll tell you what, the chemistry between Sam Rockwell and Saoirse Ronan is like off the chain. They are so good together. You'd think them two would make a good combination, but they were hilarious. Their chemistry was fantastic. This, to me, needs to be Banshees, though, Malcolm. If it's gonna make a case for the Academy Awards, it's got to start winning here, and this is one of those categories. It needs to win.
I'll get to it when we get to it, but I think Aftersun could win here, and I will explain why when we get to best film overall. Because but moving on to adapted screenplay, we've got All Quiet on the Western Front, Living, The Quiet Girl, She Said, and The Whale. Yeah, I think that at this point, this is where the nominations between the Oscars and BAFTAs are going to get radically different because you're going to start getting a whole bunch of British heavy award side things here. And I think, and that being said, I think Living, She Said, and The Whale are probably going to get nominated regardless. The Oscars. All Quiet on the Western Front could be a nice surprise. But Dan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you're gonna get. I definitely don't think you're gonna get All Quiet on the Western Front in an adapted screenplay. I think it's gonna be Women Talking. If anything gets in here, I mean, it's gonna replace that. She Said's on the bubble. I think it could get in because this side adapted screenplay is kind of weak. You know what I mean? It could squeak in there, but I think you gotta kick All Quiet out, and you gotta put Women Talking in here. In my opinion, for the Oscars, but this makes sense.
So for me, I think The Quiet Girl was the one that's probably going to get bumped from the BAFTAs.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. Because I think She Said, is actually pretty much safe at this point because I think She Said's been nominated almost everywhere. So
good then. That's good then. If it does, hey, I gave it a good review. I liked She Said. I just don't like it as good as Spotlight or All the President's Men. That's just me.
Moving on to original screenplay, we've got The Banshees of Inisherin, Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Fabelmans, Tar, and Triangle of Sadness. This is kind of the obvious five here, but Dan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is the obvious five. But once again, not to beat a dead horse, you got to get this in the bag. If you're Martin McDonagh, you need this. You got to start collecting trophies at the BAFTAs if you even got a chance. And that was my number one movie of the year. So I'm talking a lot about Banshees. I'm talking about Everything Everywhere because those are my top two films. It's like a yin and a yang or an A and a B for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, as I said, I think it's one of those ones I think when we said to the critics, they just really love Everything Everywhere all at once. But for the Oscars and BAFTAs, I can see a world where one of them will win screenplay, the other will win director. I still think that is probably what's going to happen at the Oscars.
But I'm going to make an argument here, Malcolm, not to cut you off from doing more awards, but I remember a year, I believe it's 2014, if I'm correct. You had the Birdman Boyhood thing going on, and everybody's like, Birdman's going to win this, and Boyhood's going to win that, and this and that and the other. And freaking Richard Linklater got completely shut out. And Birdman swept everything. I mean, what the hell is going on here? You know what I mean? What the heck is going on? I'm doing a Vince Lombardi. What the? And I'm just hoping that what you're talking about, how things get split, is the way things go. Because I think Banshees deserves some love at the Academy Awards, but I also do think Everything Everywhere deserves some love. But going back to 2014, that was a rough year for me because Boyhood was my number one movie of the year. and it got completely shut out for Inarritu won 3 Oscars. I'm like, come on, give Linklater 1.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those ones like, I mean, I'm just saying that I can see that happening just because I've heard a lot of people say that the screenplay for Banshees is better than Everything Everywhere, but the direction of Everything Everywhere is better than the screenplay. So, and that's kind of where my thought was with the split. But whether or not that is what happens, I honestly don't think it is. But yeah, it's just going to be. But moving on to supporting actor, we got Brendan Gleeson, and Barry Keoghan for Banshees and Sharon, Ki Kwan for Everything Everywhere All at Once, Eddie Redmayne for The Good Nurse, Albrecht Shook for All Quiet on the Western Front, and Michael Ward for Empire of Light. So I think at the Oscars, we're definitely getting Brendan, Barry, Keehee, and Eddie. But I think at this point, I think we've got to take Eddie seriously for The Good Nurse.
Yeah, he seems to be crop popping up here and there, which I'm surprised. But I mean, I'm not. I mean, I like Eddie Redmayne, but I'm just kind of surprised that people are starting to go in that direction. But he is a Brit, so if anybody could get knocked out, I think he could get knocked out at the BAFTAs for somebody else. But you could be right. I think probably Eddie gets in there. Albrecht Shirk and the kid from Empire of Light, very good performances, but it's a BAFTAs thing with them too.
Yeah. As I said, like normally I would do the whole Eddie is a Brit, that's why he got in here. But Eddie's been getting in everywhere else.
Right.
So
SAGs is the big one. He got in SAGs. You better start taking him seriously for the Academy Award.
I mean, as I said, like the first 4 are pretty much at this point locks. It's that 5th spot which is up for grabs. But moving on to supporting actress, we got Angela Bassett for Black Panther Wakanda Forever, Hong Chow for The Whale, Kerry Condon for The Banshees of Inisherin, Dolly De Leon for Triangle of Sadness, Jamie Lee Curtis for Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Carey Mulligan for She Said. It's one of those ones like, for me, I think because the BAFTAs do 6 in these categories anyway, but so I think Dolly De Leon is the one I think is kind of on the outside looking in. I think, unfortunately, as I hate to say it, because I really want Stephanie Zhu in here over Jamie Lee Curtis, I think that she's either going to get in, and it's going to be a double nomination for Everything Everywhere, or Carey Mulligan's getting in. I think it's one of those two. I think Dolly De Leon is the one that I don't think has enough momentum to get in, but she could be a surprise as well. But then, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, you kind of took the words right out of my mouth. I think Dolly De Leon hasn't got enough momentum, and I think that's a BAFTAs type thing. But also, I think Carey Mulligan, being a Brit, they love her. I think she kind of snuck in there. But I strongly believe that both, just like in Best Supporting Actor, both Brendan Gleeson and Barry Keoghan deserve to be in there. I strongly believe that both Jamie Lee Curtis and Stephanie Hsu belong in the 5 at the Academy Awards, and I'll stand by that. And that's going to be part of my predictions. I'm giving away part of my predictions right now, but I'm going for that. That's what I want to see happen.
Yeah, there's one of those ones like at this point, I think like Jamie Lee Curtis is definitely getting in regardless.
Yeah.
So, which is sad because I think Stephanie Zhu deserves it over her, but if we only get one.
And it could be a career nomination for Jamie Lee Curtis, like it is a career possible win for Angela Bassett.
But moving on to lead actor, we've got Austin Butler for Elvis, Colin Farrell for The Banshees of Inisherin, Brendan Fraser for The Whale, Dale McCormick for Good Luck to You, Leo Grande, Paul Mescal for Aftersun, and Bill Nighy for Livin'. So I think Austin, Colin, Brendan, and Bill are probably going to be in the Oscars bunch. Paul Mescal maybe. That 5th spot, I think, is kind of up for grabs. I think you could get an Adam Sandler for Hustle if they go the SAG 5 and but yeah, Dan, what are your thoughts?
Look, I think Mescal's out. I think this is once again. I'm sounding like a broken record here. Daryl McCormick, he's out of there. This is the BAFTA thing. And I'll be honest with you, I'm loving the fact that they got 6. They're giving maybe some of these other awards, but start taking after the Critics' Choice, the BAFTAs was 6 in these acting categories. But I'll tell you right now, and I don't want to say it, but you gotta still take Tom Cruise seriously at the Academy Awards. That film completely one thing it got nominated for basically over here at the BAFTAs, but you can't not take it serious with the Academy Awards. That is a very beloved film. Tom Cruise, quote unquote, saved movie theaters in America and all around the world. You still have to take that serious. That 5th spot is up for grabs, and there's a legit shot it could be Tom Cruise, but that would make for 5 white guys in Best Actor if they did do that.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those ones like it's like if it's 5 white guys, then it's what ends up happening. Like
Jeremy Pope, though, Malcolm, is the one that could really upset the apple cart here. I mean, and I'll tell you right now, when you see the inspection, I think you'll know what I'm talking about.
I mean, I don't know who Jeremy Pope is. So
he's in the inspection.
I mean, I wouldn't know what he looks like.
He's a black guy. He's a black guy. He's a young black actor.
Yeah, no, it's one of those ones like because that first what's going to be interesting because like if Tom Cruise got in a lot of other places, like he only got into the Globes, I probably would actually be predicting him. But at this point, I think he's kind of been lost in the shuffle now. Like it's definitely
the Globes.
like,
he wasn't going to get in for because of him giving his Globes.
Oh
back.
yeah.
You can forget about the Globes. The one that is a surprise, and like you said earlier, could be the potential. Adam Sandler could be like, "Hey, we didn't get you in for Uncut Gems. Here's your token Oscar nomination, Adam Sandler." And I'd be shocked if he got the nom. I'd be shocked, but I wouldn't be completely upset if Tom or Jeremy Pope didn't get in. You know what I mean? That's more of an Oscar type of thing that they would give Adam the token nom. You know what I mean?
But yeah, because I mean, like even Jeremy Pope, like is one of those ones that, like, he popped up at the Globes, but I think that was only because like he got in because Tom Cruise wasn't getting in. So he's probably one of those ones. Once again, he hasn't really been popping up anywhere else with nominations. So, but moving on to lead actress. Got Kate Blanchett for Tar, Viola Davis for The Woman King, Danielle Deadwyler for Tool, Ana de Armas for Blonde, Emma Thompson for Good Luck to You, Leah Grande, and Michelle Yeoh for Everything Everywhere All at Once. For the Oscars, I think take out Emma Thompson, you got the 5. And it's one of those ones, and I think it's one of those ones like you're going to have 5 white guys in lead actor. You're probably going to have a diversity in lead actress. So
yeah, you got Asian with Michelle Yeoh, you got black with Deadwyler and Viola Davis. You got a couple white actresses, a Brazilian actress. So you definitely got the rainbow in Best Actress.
Yeah.
But I agree with what you said. Kick out Emma Thompson, and I think that's your 5.
Yeah, and it's one of those ones like Ana de Armas, I think, is the one that might miss, if anything.
I was just gonna say, if anybody could miss, it would be her, and possibly throw in Margot Robbie.
But it's just one of those ones that I think Ana de Armas, I think, has been getting nominated everywhere at this point. I think she's really pretty safe. So
the SAG was an indicator. The SAG was an indicator to me that you got to take Ana de Armas serious. I had way back in like September, October, Malcolm, when I had my early predictions, I had Ana de Armas in there, and I took her out. But then I might have to put her back in tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and that's the other thing is because, well, yes, you may have to take the SAG seriously, but it's also one of those ones like some of those nominations are getting it because they want to appease their corporate overlords of Netflix.
Good point. Blonde Netflix, hustle Netflix. Good point, Malcolm. Good point. Very good. There's a reason why you're on this show, Malcolm. You make a couple good points once in a while. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding with you. You know, I'm kidding with you.
But moving on to director, you got Edward Berger for All Quiet on the Western Front, Banshees of Inisherin for Madame McDonough, Park Chan-wook for Decision to Leave the Daniels, Everything Every All at Once, Todd Field for Tar, and The Woman King for Gina Prince Blythewood. Surprisingly, no Spielberg, no Cameron, no Luhrmann. And I think Baz Luhrmann is a British director too. So,
I'll tell you right now, Malcolm, what a surprise and director for but I'll tell you right now, keep your eyes out for Berger. I mean, this guy could pop up. I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, he could be the 5. He could be the 5th guy in director. You can't not put, I mean, it's McDonough, Daniels, but you gotta probably kick out shoot, because Spielberg's in there. You know, Spielberg's in. Daniels, McDonough, Spielberg, they're in there. Probably Blythewood is out. Even though I'm glad that they did nominate her. I love The Woman King. I think and I champion. I love the fact that they put a woman director in their best director group. But I think she's not going to make it into the Academy Awards. Daniels, Martin McDonough, Spielberg. I think going on some trends, and I don't want to monopolize the conversation too much, but we've been getting some foreign international film directors. You could get a Berger or a Park Chan-wook in there because they want to make sure to appease that part of the director's branch wants to appease the foreign film directors. They've been getting one of those guys. Remember, Cold War got in there. Quaron for Roma, obviously, Parasite director, Bong Joon-ho. So I think we're looking at one of these foreign film guys to get in there. Either Park Chan-wook or Berger. Malcolm, what do you think?
Yeah, so I mean, so McDonough, Daniels, and Todd Field, I think, are definitely getting in there for sure. Well, here's the thing. I mean, it's possible. Like, I think I don't see them nominate. I do see the Oscars nominating Spielberg. It's also one of those ones like I could see Spielberg maybe potentially missing as well. Like that could be a shocking thing the Oscars are going to do.
That would be crazy. I mean, if they did that, it would be crazy.
But as well as I think if we do get a foreign film person in here, I think it's most likely going to be Edward Berger than anything, because just with the momentum All Quiet has been getting of late.
So you're saying, and I'm going to throw another name in there, Malcolm. S.S. Rajamouli, Park Chan-wook, and Edward Berger. You're saying Berger beats the other two. Out of them 3, Berger definitely gets in.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those ones like, so I think Park Chan-wook, I don't think's been getting much love, like outside of foreign thing, and and Triple R is one of those ones that may or may not translate to a nomination. It's outside of like Best Picture, so it's just one of those ones like. Triple R is really going to go all over the place. So,
yeah. So you're saying Berger. You're saying McDonough, Daniels, Tar guy, Todd Field, Berger, and Spielberg. Or no? Spielberg?
Yeah, I mean when we get to the Oscar nomination predictions,
I know. I'm just kind of figuring out where you're thinking of. But all right, yeah, let's go on. Let's move on.
Moving on to Best Film, we've got All Quiet on the Western Front, Banshees, Elvis, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Tar. So, as I said before, with Best British Film, I think that is potentially going to go to something else, just because Banshees is in Best Film as well as Best British Film. is the only one that is in both. So I mean, and I think Banshees is probably going to get best film unless BAFTAs want to throw a completely all over the.
Yeah, look, as I said, I think Banshees has got to win as many awards as it can because it's got to keep up with everything everywhere all at once. But because of the 14 nominations here, you can't count out All Quiet on the Western Front, but you also can't count out Daniels or Everything Everywhere because that's a big hit. It doesn't. I don't see it translating here as much as it did at the critics, though. Everything Everywhere. So I think you can probably kick that one out, and it's down to Everything Everywhere. It's down to Banshees and All Quiet here, and it's your argument could be what it is. If one of them wins the other one, then the other one will win this one, or they just want to give a clear and concise message. Banshees is our film, and we want to champion Banshees from this side of the ocean.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those ones like Banshees, Elvis, Everything Everywhere in Town. I think it's definitely getting into the Best Picture nominations, regardless. All Quiet could be one of those ones that could sneak in there, just be a nice surprise.
Well, the 10 nominees, the thing is, with the 10 nominees, Malcolm, you have so many variations of films. And that's the thing why I think I was glad that it went to a straight 10. You get some blockbusters, you got some indies, you got a couple foreign films, maybe whatever. You know what I mean? And I think that's the reason why they went to 10. You want a variation on what could potentially get in, you know?
I mean, I think they just wanted to stick to 10 to change up the voting. But it's one of those ones like with the design, maybe they did like even things like Oscars do a rolling scale or something. I remember seeing some videos a while ago about the actual how the voting nomination process works. But the BAFTAs voting is different because they do the whole jury system. So it's probably just one of those ones like, well, we'll have them at 6 because then that way we've got even things like because the BAFTAs pick 2, the juries pick 2, then it goes to other people to vote. I think it's something like that. But yeah.
Yeah, they saved 2. And so a lot of those, you could tell those are the saved. A lot of these categories, you could tell the 2 that were saved. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the ones that were saved was a lot of that All Quiet love was because it was saved.
Maybe.
But moving on, we're going to move over to the animation side of things. I'm not going to go through all the categories that they do the Annies. I'm going to do the main 2 though, which is best feature and best indie feature. So for best feature, we're Turning Red, Pinocchio, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, The Sea Beast, and Wendell and Wild. Dan, what are your thoughts on the best feature at the Annies?
Yeah, I mean, I love all these films. I'll tell you right now, I've seen them all and I love them all. But this has got to go to Pinocchio here. I mean, this is if you're gonna make your statement for Pinocchio winning the Academy Awards or getting nominated at the Academy Awards, then you got to win this. You know.
Yeah, and it's one of those ones like, and at this point, I think Pinocchio's like, there's no way, like, unless the tide turns back into the Pixar lanes, like, I think Pinocchio's winning this. But and then best indie feature with a movie called Charlotte, Inuo, Little Nicholas, Happy as Can Be, Marcel, The Show of Shoes On, and My Father's Dragon. I think indie features going to Marcel pretty easily there.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Malcolm.
Oh no, continue.
No, yeah, this is going to go to Marcel because I mean Marcel's been on everybody's list as the second. So if it's in another category besides Pinocchio, then it's definitely going to get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's one of those ones with something. With I think as what generally is the trend when it comes to the Oscars, like typically you tend to get a mixture of movies from indie and best feature in there enough. So I think Marcel, Puss in Boots, Turning Red, Pinocchio are four that are definitely getting in, and I think that fifth spot is up for grabs. I mean, I've seeing Rendell and Wild get in the fifth spot in a lot of places, so I think that's probably going to be the one. But I'm kind of expecting a nice surprise as well. So, but
Yeah,
yeah,
I'd love to see My Father's Dragon pop up in here, or a Minions, The Rise of Gru, or something like that. You know what I mean? Because look, to be honest with you, Universal, Illumination, DreamWorks, whatever, they're all under the Universal branch, has put out some good movies. Bad Guys, Rise of Gru, Puss in Boots. They put out some good movies this year, and so has Netflix. Netflix has got 5 good possible contenders for Best Animated Feature. 5, which is crazy.
but yeah. I've decided we're going to do the Oscar nomination predictions tomorrow. Get some guests on, just because I've got a few other girls that I bet they have been sitting in here for, although I kind of want to get out of the way, because once the Oscar nomination out there, you're actually going to be pretty useless. But moving on to the USC Scripter Awards, these awards go for the adapted screenplays done by some library in there, but the nominations for the film for best adapted screenplay or UFC scripted, but yeah, is Pinocchio, Living, She Said, Top Gun Maverick, and Woman Talking. So I think it's definitely going to be good for Women Talking to get nominated here, because it keeps them in that conversation to be nominated. Pinocchio is actually a nice surprise to see here, because I don't think that's getting any love anywhere, but Living, She Said, and Top Gun Maverick I think is pretty obvious. But Dan, what are your thoughts about adapted?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that these 5 got in and 3 of these are starting to pop up other places is good for both. And when I'm saying Living is Living, She Said, which we talked about at the BAFTAs, and obviously Women Talking has to win this. You would hope, and with the win at the Critics' Choice and the win here, that could really that could just kind of parlay itself into an Oscar nomination and potential win for Sarah Polley.
Oh yeah, definitely. But yeah, I think if anything, I think Pinocchio is probably the one that will end up being bumped out for something else ultimately. But in saying that, if that gets nominated, it's
The Whale.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I think Pinocchio's probably going to be bumped out for either The Whale or Quiet or something like that. But moving on to the Visual Effects Society. So the nominations for outstanding visual effects in a photoreal feature, and I think this is might be the but yeah. So for outstanding visual effects in a photoreal feature is Avatar: The Way of Water, Fantastic Beasts: The Secret of Dumbledore, Jurassic World Dominion, The Batman, and Top Gun Maverick. And I believe all 5 of these are on the shortlist for visual effects at the Oscars. So it could be interesting. But what are your thoughts about the outstanding visual effects for Visual Effects Society?
Well, this is an indicator on how good Avatar is going to be. It needs to win here. You know what I mean? This is just like the scripters, like for Women Talking, and some of these little small groups. You start the tea leaves. You start reading the tea leaves, and you got to get this win for Avatar if you're going to have a chance at winning the Oscar. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But yeah, and I think the outstanding one is probably what ends up translating to Oscars. I think that's kind of the Oscar one. But I am going to bring this up because I didn't realize this was a thing until I looked at the visual effects. But the Visual Effects Society also do an award for outstanding supporting visual effects, which is weird. And I'm just going to bring up the nominations anyway, but none of these is going to
Well, that's what we talked about before, like with All Quiet and Pinocchio and some of these films. They have kind of like background effects that don't look, you just don't notice them, but they're there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, whether or not that's what supporting visual effects mean, I don't know. But the nominations for supporting visual effects, you've got Death on the Nile, I Want to Dance with Somebody, The Fablemans, The Grey Man, The Pale Blue Eye, and 13 Lives. So, I mean, those are the nominations.
And I'll tell you right now, I've been hearing a lot of talk about this. 13 Lives is prime to win this because I'm hearing that the hidden visual effects in 13 Lives are phenomenal. You don't even know they're there. And there's a lot of like stuff with the people going through the tunnels and where the cameras going through and the rebuilding like stuff to where it looks like the caves and the caves aren't even there. It's all on a set and stuff like that. And I think this is a clear-cut favorite in this award. And not to kind of use the same word parlay, this could, I don't think it will, but you just don't know if 13 Lives could sneak into the Oscars for this.
Yeah.
And I thought 13 Lives was a great film, and that stuff was really amazing to see how that worked in the film.
But moving on to sound editors nominations. So for sound editing, feature dialogue, ADR, you got Banshees, Batman, Elvis, Empire of Light, Everything All at Once, and Top Gun Maverick.
You get the main two in there.
Yeah,
you get the main two. It's just coming down to everything in Top Gun. It's just a matter of what their preference is, Malcolm.
Oh yeah, it's one of those ones like, and then sound editing for feature effects. Foley is Avatar, The Batman, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Jurassic Dominion, Nope, and Top Gun Maverick. Once again,
now I could see that going to Top Gun because the sound of the jets and stuff and how realistic that sounded. That if they split editing, remember how a couple of years ago it was two categories? You could see two different films win in editing. Where here, I think you're going to see two different films win. You could potentially see everything in the one and then a Top Gun in the other. Or if they really want to push it, Top Gun could win both of these.
Yeah. Moving on, I've got the Art Directors Guild, which is the production design type of stuff. For period feature film, you got All Quiet on the West Front, Babylon, Elvis, The Fablemans, and White Noise. Dan, what are your thoughts?
Well, Babylon's in here, but are they going to go with All Quiet on the Western Front? That's the question. If Babylon wins here, you could pretty much check that box on Tuesday that it'll get that nomination.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those ones like with art directors, like they've separated into the three different like categories. So I think like period, and I think it's going to depend on how they think All Quiet sort of like is with period. But so I think Babylon or even Elvis could win here. But moving on to fantasy feature film, they've got Avatar: The Way of Water, The Batman, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Nope. I think Avatar's going to get it here. But then, what are your thoughts?
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. That's that you got to check that box at this point for Avatar. I mean, when they separate it like this, there's some of these that seem like obvious picks,
And then for contemporary feature film, you got Bardo, False Chronicle of a Handful of Truths, Bullet Train, Glass Onion, and Knives Out Mystery, Top Gun Maverick. I'm glad to see Bullet Train is in here because that's that set is just one of those coolest things that they do.
It is amazing what they were able to do with that film. On that, the editing is incredible. But I would not be surprised and know that Bardot somehow could win this. I don't know how, but I'm just telling you, Bardot's got the weirdest, craziest stuff going on in that movie, Malcolm. And There's a reason why it's in this category. So keep an eye out for Bardot winning this.
Yeah, I mean, the other one I can see is a Glass Onion maybe winning it too because, but yeah, and then
What they did was because they split. They had the movie right, then they stopped and then they went back and started the movie all over again from Janelle Monáe's perspective.
yeah.
That is some pretty freaking cool editing.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those ones like I don't know if the editing will come into the production design, but but then the last one is animated feature film with production design. That's Pinocchio, Lightyear, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, Puss in Boots, Last Wish, and Turning Red. Just the usual bunch. But Dan, what are your thoughts?
Pinocchio, and I got confused. I thought we were talking about the editing again. I forgot we moved on to production design, but that was a beautiful. Be honest, Malcolm. Tell me you would not want to go to Greece and spend some time on that island and that beautiful, just the water, the glass, the whole nine yards. That was some beautiful stuff. So backtracking on that, yeah, Pinocchio. If this isn't Pinocchio, I don't know what's going to win here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then the last one we've got is the American Society of Cinematographers. Yeah, for feature film is the one that we're probably going to be for. That is the ones. So nominated for the cinematography is Empire of Light, Greg Fraser for the Batman, Bardo, the False Chronicle of a Handful of Truths, Top Gun Maverick, and Elvis. Elvis is a nice surprise here, but I think this could be the 5 because I think even with cinematographies, there's always a random
outlier
foreign film in there too.
Yeah, but you got 2 heavyweights with Greg Fraser and Roger Deakins in here. But obviously, the fact that Top Gun's in here bodes well for that film, and it's a good sign.
But yeah, but with that being said, that is I think that is all I've got this time. Yeah, that is all I've got this time. As I said, we'll be back to tomorrow to do a special episode to talk about our Oscar nomination predictions. But there's some comments here for me. I mean, it's one of those ones like Brian, like sometimes with superhero movies, like it's one of those ones like I always hate this things like the Oscars is biased against these genres, but it's just one of those things like if it's good enough, they will get nominations.
And that's the fact with Angela. She's transcending that thought process from people that are people. Oh, it's a superhero, so that she's transcending it because they believe in what she's doing. Also, there's that narrative of potential a career award for her.
Oh yeah, and the other, the other one that sort of come up here is Tom Hanks might get his prize nomination for A Man Called Otto, because but I just think that movie kind of came out a little bit too late, so I think to make any sort of waves.
I will tell you this, Malcolm. I did get a screener of A Man Called Otto early December. So if I got it in my critics guild, I'm assuming a lot of other critics guilds got it, and that on that point, the actors and the people voting in a lot of these awards got it. That to me, everybody's talking about Andrea Riseborough to Leslie. I saw. It's not that great. I mean, she's okay in it, but it's not like it's blew me away. She was okay. But the guy that could upset the apple cart is Tom Hanks in the wrong category. Because remember we were talking, Tom Hanks in Best Supporting Actor because he's playing such a nasty character and he never played a villain before, But Best Actor after all these years in a very worthy role. And I'll tell you, I saw Otto, and he's very, very good in A Man Called Otto. and he could knock out the other Tom here.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's one of those like what I meant by too late. Well, I know that like everyone gets screeners and that for these awards and all that. It could just be a little bit too late because I think maybe people just weren't focusing on A Man Called Otto's. Like they wanted to focus on other ones that are getting all this love because I don't like A Man Called Otto hasn't been getting a lot of sort of like big noticeable out there pushes. So, and I think that's what I was getting at there.
No, you're right. No, you're 100% right. But I was like all this stuff about To Leslie. I mean, To Leslie, I saw it like 3 months ago, and everybody's seen it now, and they're like, "Oh my God, Andrea Riseborough." Same thing. Tom Hanks is coming out now, and people are like, "Oh, Tom Hanks, he's so good in Otto, this, that, and the other." Naomi Aki and Whitney, do you want to dance with me or whatever? I want to dance with somebody, whatever. You know what I mean? I would, if you're going to start making those types of comments, I'd say the Pale Blue Eye deserves some love. I think we're talking about a movie that came out late, but has phenomenal acting and text and you name it, and direction and all that stuff is the Pale Blue Eye. But nobody's talking about the Pale Blue Eye. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But it is. I mean, it is what it is. But with that being said, that's the end of today's episode. As I said, we'll be back tomorrow for a special episode. We'll be talking about the Oscar nomination predictions. Then we'll be back next week talking about the actual nominations. But Dan, we can be find you online.
You can find me at Dan Skip Allen on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, on Pinterest, or Letterbox, also From the Fourth Row, or DP Skip Allen, something like that. Those are all the places that all my socials. Also, I'm a film critic, and in Orlando, Florida, I write for FromTheFourthRow.com and DisappointmentMedia.com. Right now, I'm covering Slam Dance Film Festival and the Sundance Film Festival, so I'm going to be cranking out a bunch of reviews here in the next week.
But yeah, and you can find me on Tape Free Productions in just under an hour and a half, actually, because I'll have Rankum on tonight. We're talking about the top 12, going to be doing top 12 action movies of the 90s. And then you can find me all over the place. Like I pop up on Movie Hero Network, Full Metal, all that. A lot of the time. So yeah, I'm all over the place. So before that, see you at the movies.
Probably do a live reaction. Malcolm, are you gone already? Malcolm, where'd you go?